Super Chair.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is the appointed hour, 1 o'clock. On February, the last day of February, we're marching into spring here. And I want to welcome everyone who are joining us in person today and those who are tuning in either through our YouTube or through Rogers TV. Welcome all. We're glad to have you with us on this beautiful Monday. Noting that all of our counselors are in attendance today and our staff are with us as well, I will call this meeting to order. And we'll start with our land acknowledgement, and I'll turn it over to Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis peoples and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. I'd ask you all to join us in a moment of reflection as we consider the business before us this afternoon. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of interest, pecuniary or otherwise, around the table? Noting that should an interest arise as we continue the discussions, you may declare it then. We'll move on to announcements. Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good afternoon, everyone. And just one announcement today, and that is a save the date for a spring job fair here in Meaford, Tuesday, April the 5th at the Meaford Community Center between 2 and 6 p.m. And anyone can get in touch with myself or Kim Ware at the Chamber of Commerce office, 519-538-1640 to register as a business. There's no charge for any businesses to set up a table at the job fair, and we just encourage people to come out and to do that, recognizing that we're heading into spring and businesses will be picking up and getting ready for the summer season. So any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And it's just a comment on a past announcement. On February 17th, it was Active Kindness Day here in the province and at Meaford. And it really warmed my heart to see staff out on the front steps of this hall handing out muffins and hot chocolate down at the arena, down at the library. But I'll tell you, there was an act of kindness that really warmed my heart. There was a gentleman out there, Councillor Paul Vickers. He had an armful of flowers he could hardly carry, handing them out to people, and it really warmed my heart. Thank you, Councillor Vickers.
We all appreciate that little act of generosity and kindness. Thank you for that. And I'm seeing no further hands, so I will have just a few here for us. And again, this is our first virtual or in-person council meeting in a long while. And again, welcome to all those attending today. As we start to open up with all of the restrictions, I just want to encourage everyone to check out the adult and youth and kids programs we have on offer. They're all listed on our website for more information, and certainly it is great to see some of the opportunities that are being planned for this spring and summer. Just want to make note too, the Meaford Chamber of Commerce is announcing their upcoming event on March the 25th at Meaford Hall. This event kicks off with an AGM and a chamber update. And then they have a Meaford Trivia contest in play, and they will celebrate the 2022 Community Award winners as well. Prizes are to be had, and the grand finale is our guest speaker, Rob Voigt, our Director of Development, who will be discussing the newest updates and on Meaford's official plan. Tickets are $20 and you can find them at Meaford Chamber of Commerce website. The public library is developing their new strategic plan for 2022 and they want your feedback as well. You can fill out their online survey and it will be available until March the 13th. We've done really, really well with all the surveys that have been posted for various activities, either from staff, and so we certainly encourage folks to join in this one as well. And I do want to again reiterate the Meaford kindness event and thank everyone for participating. Fortunately, I was not able to attend in person, but I certainly was very, very appreciative of all of staff and council who participated in that day and random acts of kindness day. And let's keep those random acts of kindness coming. I think it perks spirits up all over and it was just a great event to start, and let's hope that we can continue this. And this will become a staple in our community. Anything further from council? Seeing none, then nothing, we will move on to public participation. As usual, we welcome our public to come and present to us items that they're interested in. We also have an opportunity for the public to join in on delegations for topics that are on the agenda or to ask questions in public. Today, we have no one registered for the public participation except for two presentations. And I just want to make it known that if folks do want to participate, they could please let the clerk's office know before 10 o'clock in the morning of the council meeting so that we can get that organized, whether it's virtual or in person. So it is a real pleasure for me to welcome Nellie Greb, the Meaford Food Bank and Outreach, to speak to us today about the Community Bursary Program update. Welcome, Nellie. It's so great to see you again in person. And I know you've got a good news story for us today.
Make sure that's working. That I certainly do. And thank you, Council and Madam Mayor, for having me this afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here and to be able to share some of the things that we've been able to do with the bursary funds that have been coming our way. It's a pleasure on my part when I get to spend the money, but even a bigger pleasure that I can share with you guys as to what we're able to do with that. I'm just going to jump ahead. One of the main things that I requested when I came in for the presentation, I think it was back in 2018, was that we would be able to buy new freezers. So if you look at the picture behind you, the tall one on the right-hand side is one of the new purchases that we've made. And you can see it's being put to very, very good use. And because of that, I have a pretty big voice. Because of that, probably the biggest thing for us is that we are able to accept more donations. We are not funded through anything other than donations. So donations like yours is what keeps us running. We get donations from local farmers, and some of our local farmers have been amazing with us. We're also part of Feed Ontario, which generally gives us a large quantity. This year we got, I think it was a total of 750 3-pound chickens, and we can't take a partial order. So you either have room or you don't. And with the amount of freezer space that we had priorly, we weren't able to take advantage of that. And it's really nice to be able to give a family a whole chicken. And we're also part of an organization called the Food Bank of Waterloo, and there's a surplus depot. And they also provide us with meat on a monthly or frozen items on a monthly basis. So you can see the importance of us having a lot of freezer space. Also, we've had lots of conversations with public health, and their guidelines as far as proper storage are pretty stringent. I'm going to take you back to the freezer picture in a minute, but anything that has meat or any type of meat product has to have divisions between that and anything else. So nothing meat-wise can touch any other type of food according to public health regulations. And because of that, sometimes our freezers don't look as full as maybe they should be, but we can't put those things in with each other. So just having the extra freezers allows us to be able to store everything properly. So once again, going back, you can see in the door, the tall freezer, that's from a local farmer, gave us all the pork products, and all the shelves are filled with pork products. There's a pile of the chicken that we still are able to give out. We also get milk on a monthly basis, so we're able to hand that out to clients at every visit as well. So that's one of the purchases that we were able to make. I'm going to go to this next slide. If you have a look here, this room is one of our storage rooms, and initially it was totally empty when we took over at the food bank. And what we started doing prior to being able to buy our new shelving is we were putting everything on pallets on the floor, and it wasn't a very good way to do things. And it also didn't enable us to take advantage of some of the donations that we get. So prior to that, it was an empty storage room. And now what these shelves allow us to do is to accept, organize, and store way more. We, like I mentioned before, we're part of the Waterloo Food Bank Surplus Depot, and once a month we place an order. And for instance, this past month, we got 350 cases of pasta. And prior to having the shelves in there, we were literally stacking those things on pallets on the floor. So now we're able to properly store those. And we're also able to take advantage of those larger orders. We have to put in an order every month. And now we were able to say, yes, we can take the 350 cases because we have room to store them. I'm also a member of the Poverty Task Force for Grey Bruce. And many times throughout the year, we are offered large quantities of food. In the last order that I placed with them, we were able to take in 1,000 cans of spaghetti sauce. And when you think spaghetti sauce goes a long way for a family, and without proper shelving in that room, we just weren't able to do that type of thing. We also get a lot of donations through United Way, and that's also through the Poverty Task Force. So being part of that is just a real advantage for us. And then the Salvation Army Food Bank, they're not a depot for us, but they do take in large quantities for us, and then we have to go there and pick it up. And that happens once a month. And just for us to be able to go and it makes me shiver sometimes just to be able to go and say, wow, yeah, we can take all that and be able to then properly store it. So I'll just go back to that, to see, and you can see over on the far, I have to look to see what hand, and over the far right-hand side, that's some of the pasta that came in. And on the left-hand side, you can see that that's the spaghetti sauce that we got. So just the advantage of being able to take in those large quantities. And the picture isn't totally clear, but if you have a look at the left-hand side, those whitish colored boxes, they're actually beer cases, but that's what they send a lot of the things to us in. Those are completely full of personal hygiene products. And so we were able to take advantage of that delivery as well. So I feel that we've made very good use of the money, and it has certainly been a huge benefit for our clients. Our client numbers have not increased much, over 10%, but their need is so much greater. Prior to the pandemic, we were giving out about 30 pounds of food or 30 pounds of groceries. Now we're giving out about 65 pounds of groceries. People were coming to us after a week and saying it just wasn't enough. And so our shelves do need to be full for us to be able to do that. And fortunately for the funds that we've received, we're able to make that storage space work for us. So thank you so much on behalf of not only myself, but my board of directors, our volunteers, as well as our clients who are so thankful that we're able to do for them what we do. Anyone has any questions, I'm certainly open to questions.
Thank you, Nellie, and thank you and your board of directors. I know there's a very few, they're very few in number. 8?
There's 8 in number. Right now, there's only 6 of us that work in the food bank. Prior to COVID, we had upwards of 50 volunteers. And since the beginning of COVID, we've been, our mighty little crew has been of 7 has been keeping the food bank open for the past 2 years. And the only day that we have shut through the pandemic was when Dr. Ian Eric called me personally and suggested that we close for a day. And I think that was
mental health day. I'm sure you needed it.
Yeah, and yet we're doing okay. I have check-ins with everybody regularly, and we're a pretty mighty little crew. And
You
and,
are mighty indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thanks to all of them for their work over particularly over the past 2 years, but certainly all encompassing. This is such a terrific service for our community. I just had one question. I wondered if there was, if the numbers, if you saw a fluctuation in the numbers of families that were being helped since the government subsidies have stopped from as of COVID.
We were really, really high in December, and it has leveled off a little bit now in January and February. I would say we're at a minimum of 10% higher than what we were prior to COVID. But like I said, the people's need just seems so much greater, and their dollars just don't go as far. And I don't think that, and I don't know, but I'm feeling that their amount that they're getting in hasn't gone up substantially as much as food has gone up or housing has gone up. And so we're just finding that people are really, I'm going to say over this past 6 months, we've seen so many desperate people come to our door, like literally in tears. They don't know how to make it through. And we've always sort of suggested, and this is through Feed Ontario, that they try to, we supply between 3 and 5 days worth of food when they come. And we have always had the premise that they should try to come once a month. We can't say that anymore. We would never turn anybody away, and there's so often that people are coming 2 and 3 times a month, and they know that the premise is to try to come once a month, but they're in tears at our door, and that's what we're there for, is to be able to provide for them, but that's what we're finding more and more is happening. So the numbers haven't really gone up, just the number of visits have gone up.
Well, that's good to know. Thank you so much for that. Food security is certainly top of mind all throughout Grey County now, and we're all very, very concerned about it, but we really appreciate what you and your mighty crew are doing for us. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Nellie. Thanks to you and your volunteers, and hopefully the numbers will start to come back and increase. I just got a couple of brief questions. You were mentioning about the freezers, and we could see how stocked up they were. First question: we know Hydro One fails us sometimes. Do you have a backup power supply for these freezers?
I don't know if you noticed when we didn't prior to about a year ago, and then I started to worry about that type of thing as well. So we decided to have them completely rewired, and we do have a generator in the room, which they will contact me if that gets activated. So because we have thousands of dollars worth of meat, and if anything ever happened, it would be devastating.
Okay.
So we do have some backup. The generator would not be enough to run the freezers for any length of time. It's just a smaller generator, but it would give us enough time to go over there and call every person in town that we know to come and take food out of the freezers.
I'm glad to hear that. If I may, Your Worship. I doubt if this ever happens, but do you ever have any foodstuffs that go by the expiry date? And if you do, what happens to it? I doubt if that ever happens. But
to be quite honest, it actually happens quite a bit. People often empty out their cupboards, and then we get expired food donated to us, a lot of it actually. We have very, very strict guidelines through Feed Ontario and through the public health as to how long we can hand things out after they've been expired. But we as our tiny little mighty board, we really struggle with that. It's more a stigma thing than anything. Our clients will say, just because we're poor doesn't mean we need to eat rotten food. And that for me, as somebody who devotes as much of my time as I do, is heart-wrenching. That we try very, very carefully not to hand out very much of anything that's expired. And yet a can of food can be handed out for a full year past its expiry date. And that is governed by the public health department as well as Feed Ontario. But otherwise we compost it. And And unfortunately, it's never anything that comes from grocery stores because that's all checked through the grocery store, but it's people who are cleaning out their mother's cupboards and just this past 2 weeks ago, I guess, I took a big box that had to be composted and most of the items in it were from 2007.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Orders. Council Bartley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I was going to ask much the same question as Councillor Greenfield. But just remember, it's best not to hand that food out, but it is best before. It's not bad after.
No, exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And I think we were always giving it out, but the number of times that people have said, you know, and they always say the same thing. I'm poor, but I do not need to eat rotten food. And then that sort of then totally takes away the beauty of being able to help somebody. So we're pretty careful that, and we date absolutely everything. Like every can of everything is in dated boxes so that we hand out like our cereal shelf, for instance, right now we're handing out cereal that's outdated or that's best before in July. And it's all organized by month. And we do that with everything. So
Great. And thank you.
you're welcome.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I want to add my appreciation, Nellie, for all the great work that you do. And one question for you. We recently heard a presentation from Paul Wagoner from United Way, who suggested a chilling statistic of 1 in 5 in our area in Grey Bruce suffering food insecurity. So I just want to ask you, Nellie, even though your freezers look full and your shelves look full, do you have enough? Are you in a good place?
Right now, we are in a good place. And I'm not doing this as an advertisement, please don't think that, but the food drive that happened at the grocery store this past Christmas provided us with 400 $10 bags of groceries plus 130 bags of hygiene products. So that certainly filled our shelves. And then prior to that, they did a huge food drive that just didn't end. It just kept going. And with that, we got 4,000 bags of $10 grocery bags. So right now our shelves are full. And I was just saying to Madam Mayor before we started today that we've been warned about COVID fatigue as far as donors, and that hasn't happened to us. We have been extremely, extremely fortunate with how generous this community is. It's phenomenal. I'm standing here, it's even giving me shivers just being able to share that with you. Our community is extremely generous and it hasn't let up. I thought, okay, last a year in and maybe a year and a half in that we're doing very, very well. We're able to purchase what we don't receive and people are donating like crazy. Our farmers are like, it's really, really been phenomenal.
Kindness lives in this community.
It does very, very much so. And like I said, it makes me shiver. I go to get the pickup and we're struggling to find space. And anyone who ever wants to come and have a visit at the food bank, it's a pretty big facility. And right now we are full to the top. So it's great. Yeah. We actually probably have enough to see us through just because of how things are dated. We're feeling we probably have enough in store now to do our hampers for next Christmas in dried goods, all things that are dated 2023. So, and this year we did just over 200 Christmas hampers. So.
Wow, great news story, Nellie. Thank you for sharing it today. And please extend our heartfelt thanks to your board and all of your volunteers who are helping, and to the community for getting behind this. This is such an important service to provide to our community, and we're very, very grateful. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right, our next presentation is Mike Vance and Julie Scarcella, and from the South Georgian Bay Regional Housing Initiative. And this will be a virtual presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to check to see if everybody can hear me okay. It's Julie Scarcella.
Yes, Julie, we're fine. Will you please go ahead?
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us today. Mike and I very much appreciate this opportunity to present. Today we'll be discussing a few slides to share with you about our intentions of helping to support housing for all in South Georgian Bay. And today we'll be talking, Mike and I will be talking on a few points. Unfortunately, the rest of our working board could not make it today, but there is 2 of us out of the 6 that are here today. Next slide, please. Today's agenda is really, the intentions of why we're here today in our presentation. We have a couple of highlights to support our outcomes, who we are, some of the regional housing gaps that, of course, we're all well aware of in terms of affordable housing. Discuss a few things about best practices, and an opportunity that we want to talk about is working together collaboratively within the region to support housing. Next slide, please. I think we're all well aware of the impacts to COVID has created even far more issues in the region for housing, combined with the major issue of global warming. Our group has quite extensive experience on dealing with housing, but also climate change. And today we want to talk a little bit about how this proposed housing corporation would be looking to support and address the major issues supporting housing, but also meeting the targets for GHG reduction and moving the needle towards net zero. We believe that housing and housing support affordable should support a very clear mandate and direction for all construction builds to really move the needle towards net zero. So I think we're here to talk a little bit about both, about supporting housing, but all housing should be built and future-proofing for what's coming our way in terms of supporting of global warming. Next slide, please. Our purpose today is to really discuss this new organization and how it would be addressing regional housing. We really want to emphasize, our goals, which is about working together. It's about collaboration. And coming up with different ways to address that. And, most importantly, to look at delivering housing and to allow, 70% of the people who live in the area to remain in the area. I think we're all well aware that people who are working here have to drive a long way to get to work. And there virtually is very limited housing to support, Owen Sound to Meaford, to the town of Blue Mountains and beyond. Our objectives is really to talk about public and private organizations like what we are proposing, breaking down those silos and looking at another way to support and drive new housing projects from the proposed housing corporation that we're here to talk about today. So our real objective here is to work together, both with public and private sector, to make housing available for everybody. Next slide, please. Our desired outcomes really are 4 pillars. Working regionally on housing takes a coordinated effort, bringing together more than just one municipality to look at what would success look like. And the delivery of housing in collaboration with the municipalities and other organizations. It also looks at pooling resources. There's many municipalities in the region that are dealing with the same issues, whether it's planning, policy, incentives, accessing environmental information to support proper buildings for housing, and other things such as financial costing on housings. A lot of these things are being developed in silos and are not being shared. And we think this entity could be a catalyst for change where we're sharing information among the municipalities to support the developers and others to fast track housing. There's a few other examples that we will show you beyond this area that have done similar approaches. And we really think partnership is everything. Setting partnerships up is looking at accountability and looking together at short and long-term wins What might that look like for housing? And really supporting the developers. There's a thirst out there to support the developers. And what are their needs? Is it incentives? Is it DC charges? Is it looking at other ways to help support them move towards developing to net zero? There's a long wish list there. We're aware of some of it, but we really think partnerships is critical, where we work together at some shared ideas of pooling resources and execution of housing far faster, far more efficient. Next slide, please.
Maybe a quick comment, Julie, just to reinforce how important partnerships are. No single organization can really make the kind of an impact without working together.
Thanks, Mike. So who are we? I've been a resident in the area for 35 years. My son resides and lives here in Clarksburg. He's one of those many, he's 25, and his girlfriend who can't afford housing. He works in the trades, and his girlfriend's actually about to be a nurse. And they both combine with their combined efforts of housing, can't work here, or, can't live here. They're working here, but they can't live here. They've been looking for housing now for 2 years, to accommodate what they can afford. And the last 2 years have been extremely hard for them. So, this entity, this opportunity really is about envisioning a South Georgian Bay Housing Corporation, and to support those, the working class, the professionals, the seniors, the single parents. There's a scaling demography here of all different types of housing that needs to be built, and it needs to be built. It needs to be built yesterday. So we're really looking at, a proposed organization here that is going to support rental and home ownership, and provide the additional technical consulting. This organization can also help on, housing, but also on the sustainability aspects. The working group really right now is made up of some experts. Our team includes construction and finance, builders, construction. We do have some marketing expertise. We are seeking a planner. We are seeking, other business development outreach specialists. We also have two very interesting people on our working board, both who set up the Banff Housing Corporation as well as the Whistler Housing Corporation. Both have been successful. It's taken them a lot of work, but that kind of expertise is what makes up our working board right now. And our working group is really here to work with the region on finding other solutions to get housing up and running. Next slide, please. So where are we now? I think we're, the issues with infrastructure to protecting the land, a regional needs assessment. It's something that hasn't been done yet. Regional coordination, really fast tracking the area of energies and emissions. Reducing the overlap of resources for regional coordination is critical. And also looking at, different policies and different tools and templates that can be shared amongst all the municipalities. We'd hate to see one municipality develop some of these resources and then the other municipality have to do the same thing. These are critical resources that need to be developed collectively and together, a shared vision. Next slide, please. So what gaps would a regional housing corporation really fill? Absolutely funding. What we already know, boots on the ground, is that there isn't enough access to funding. The municipalities and other communities are not applying for the federal funding that's available to us right now. Both municipalities, developers, and others have access to a large sum of money, both from the federal and the provincial government, to allowing for housing and for developing needs assessment. And they want to see that done regionally. They don't want to see one-off municipalities, rural or not, apply for one aspect to support just their own backyard. They're looking for creative solutions pertaining to regionalization, because they know that the federal government, those funds aren't forever, and sure, they may bit related to deep pockets right now, but at the end of the day, coming together and accessing funding collectively is really critical. And pooling that money and looking at, using certain leverage like this proposed not-for-profit that we're suggesting to work together on a shared vision. It really is about increasing efficiencies. It is about partnerships, and it's delivering a wide range of housing based on our regional needs. And it's providing some operational support. Other regional not-for-profits like this that we're suggesting that have been up and operational, there's about 7 in Ontario, probably across Canada, there's probably about 20. They hire people. They have a working board. They are a not-for-profit, and they have staff. And their staff, the organization in Ottawa, KEDCO, has about 10 staff that deliver on housing. So the operational support and the board expertise and hiring local people to help execute on the housing is kind of the best practices that really what we're moving towards. And providing that recognition and performance is part of that annual review. Next slide, please. So what we know for sure is just south of us, Mississauga, Brampton, Caledon, and the Region of Peel came together in 2018. And they developed a regional housing initiative. 4 municipalities came together, working together on solving the pains and the issues. Now we understand they're bigger municipalities, but they made it work. And what we're finding is that rural municipalities are facing even more challenges. So this is where critically looking at other best practices, they developed one needs assessment. They developed a suite of policies that they're sharing together for execution on policy. And they're also executing, for example, how to expedite the planning process for development processes to be expedited faster, and they're doing it once, but they're sharing that information. So it is working just south of us. And then we also know out west, there's been phenomenal examples of other housing corporations, not-for-profits, Canmore, Calgary, London, Ontario, Indowell, New Commons, CADCO. These are all not-for-profit corporations with a board, with staff, executing on housing in partnership with their municipalities. So there are other really amazing best practices. And a lot of these organizations are willing to help us get there. We've reached out to many of them, and many of them are aligned with our vision of what we want to be able to do here. Next slide, please. So what does partnership really look like? It really means working towards a housing vision together. You start with one project. That's where it all starts. And we work together on rolling out what that could be. Is it a seniors cooperative? Is it a single family housing unit? Is it workforce housing, potentially? And can we work towards something collaboratively that really provides a coordinated approach that embodies the climate change opportunities at the same time? It's really looking at partnerships to promote and contribute our joint influences and our synergies together, the short wins and the long term. Looking at the capacity of what you have, both the town and your capacity and your own use of resources and ours. And it's building credibility with the community, because I think a lot of issues over the last 2 years has been challenged within our region on housing and housing startups. Next slide, please. I really think that the benefits can really help expedite access to funding right away. As a not-for-profit we can leverage startup costs to be a not-for-profit, and we can work with the regional municipalities on the critical areas of their needs. It means integrating and working with volunteers, and we already know that there's a lot of volunteers already boots on the ground working. But we also understand that volunteers are critical to the execution of opportunities and taking what's been done and working that into a regional not-for-profit by hiring staff, hiring real people to do the work. That's why the federal government has allowed all this funding. Having real staff, project managers, and staffing up to execute on housing is really important, and working with the volunteer work that's already been underway. I think we need to work together on a short and long-term resolution to housing. We need to better support the development community. We understand we've had deputations to Wasaga Beach area, and we've heard from a number of developers that are really interested in wanting to do housing. They've reached out to us because they want to find that way. They want to know, they don't know how to do it. So how can we help them? And we are helping them. And I think it's really critically that we build the resources to support the green building and the climate change requirements. Next slide, please. So where are we today? Sorry. We have conducted 5 municipality deputations so far since the fall till now. We still have a few more to do. We're aligned to have deputation in Owen Sound and a few other deputations in Bruce County. We are and have had discussions with Grey County, deep discussions about what we're proposing and how can we help the county on any new housing projects that could be coming our way. We've also discussed with Grey County on a recent grant application that we submitted on for $500,000 to support the development of other tools and resources that could be executed here. And we're working through that opportunity with Grey County. So those conversations have started, and we're trying to build a partnership with Grey County on looking at what's the low-hanging fruit on housing projects that we potentially could be working on. We're also discussing with Simcoe County, both the grant work as well as other opportunities in Simcoe. We do have a proposed workforce housing project in the region where a developer and another councillor came to us just recently and asked for our support. Workforce housing for them was critical in their municipality, and they were really falling short at helping support staffing. So we are looking at that opportunity, but we think we can do so much more. So we have not yet incorporated our not-for-profit. We would like to work with the municipalities first to fine-tune whether or not there's a relationship with a partnership with at least 2 municipalities before we decide to incorporate the not-for-profit. Next slide, please. I think this is about working together, efficient, stronger, alignment. How can we get more housing projects off the ground yesterday? Thank you for your time.
Okay. Maybe just a quick comment, Julie, in that sort of maybe as a more mature resort community, about half of our resident population, a little over 5,000 people, live in restricted housing, and that's the only way they can remain in the community. So it's just a critical piece of maintaining and supporting your community.
Thanks, Mike.
We're done. Thank you. I wasn't sure about seeing the slides behind me. Thank you so much, Julie, and to you, Mike, as well, for your presentation this afternoon. There's no doubt that housing for all is top of mind for many of us in rural areas as well as in our smaller communities. So we really appreciate the information that you've shared with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for the presentation, folks. I read through your report, as I'm sure my fellow councillors have, and I read it with great interest because, as our mayor has just moments ago mentioned, that affordable housing is on the forefronts of all of our minds in the positions that we hold. And I just want to say, maybe you would like to hang on and watch the rest of our council today, as I have a notice of motion coming, Madam Mayor, and it deals with affordable housing and maybe something that this municipality can do. I look at those 5 points that were presented, and it's all about having new ideas and new scope and partnerships and what all of us can do in a little piece of the pie to make the big pie a good thing. So thank you for your presentation, and thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Vickers, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thanks again for your presentation. I looked through the presentation before the meeting and now I've listened to it now. Tell me, what is the one thing I could do or we could do as a council and a municipality to help forward your ideas, your mission along? I guess I'm struggling to find out the do out of your presentation. Help me understand.
We have a proposed partnership. We could perhaps send that off to council for consideration and how we could work together on some low-hanging fruit. That may also include some of the suggestions on your official plan review right now. Obviously, your official plan review is a critical piece to this because it needs to really have a clear mandate for housing. That might also include restricted housing. We know you are in very good hands with Rob Voigt and your new developer, your development for planning, and he's very knowledgeable in this space. But I think first step is reconvene, which we've done with other municipalities. We have another meeting where we roll up the sleeves so we understand what a not-for-profit is and how it can help you, and look at some immediate first steps, 3 months, 6 months. Start small. So I think, we need to have another meeting to really look at what that could look like, because what we're finding is each municipality has some different needs, right? So I think continue the conversation would be next step.
Thank you very much, Julie. We appreciate your time, your mic time this afternoon, and we'll consider this for sure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
We'll move on now to council inquiries. Councillor Vickers and Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question, I guess, is to Rob. A week ago, or all these weekends and in the wintertime, it seems like old man winter seems to rear its ugly head a little bit harder. And the roads seem to be a little bit harder to get along. And it kind of came to a bit of a head on the Sunday of the family day long weekend. The roads were quite bad, I wouldn't say impassable, but they were certainly well drifted in, and we're getting a lot of concerns and complaints. And I know even up at the Old Mail Road, which is my local side road, by 11 o'clock, there was a person already stuck in the side of the road, sort of thing. So Rob, help me understand the scheduling and how it works logistically, because that day there wasn't any snow early on in the morning, but the wind certainly did pick up in the afternoon and then became quite an issue.
To Your Worship, I think the best person to explain the operations of the snow clearing is Jeff, and we've asked him to be here. If he could just come up and explain, I think he'd probably be the best for council to hear from on this.
Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Your Worship, and the council. Yeah, Mr. Vickers. So our weekend schedule essentially starts at 5 o'clock in the morning. There's 12 plow roads, as everybody is aware of. They work till a 5-hour minimum shift. So that usually is 10 o'clock, 10:30, depending on the weather. If the weather is severe, then they push extended hours to a full 8-hour shift or 10. And then the afternoon group that comes in at 5 o'clock as well works to an 8-hour shift till 1:30. On a perfect winter control season, we would have a second seasonal shift of 3 that would start at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and work till 11:30 at night. Unfortunately, this year we haven't been able to obtain 3 additional staff members. So currently we're running just with the 1 seasonal shift. We do have 4 seasonal staff on that shift right now. But to kind of combat the weather, we asked all staff essentially to push out their time frames. We still have to work with the highway under the Highway Traffic Act and the drive time, right? So 12 hours is essentially all they can put in a day. And so that's how we've been working it this year. Like the long weekend was definitely a severe weather event. Like we had strong winds. we had every road open by 11:30 at night, Sunday night after the two storm events. And then we quickly moved into an ice event. So we had 5 pieces of machinery down. One was a grader, one was a truck. And because of COVID and being able to get parts, those units, one unit is just getting put together today. The other grader was not in service during the ice event at all. So we were utilizing our trucks and the 2 other graders. We had all the trucks chained up, but with chains and, the heavy snow and ice conditions that we have, links broke on one unit, taking out the brake pod on the front. So, it was just kind of a ripple effect of the over the weekend where, the team was struggling, and we did keep the roads open, but yes, at times there was likely a 4 or 6 hour event each day where the roads were, in a drifted icy condition that, it was causing motorist issues.
If I may.
Go
So-
ahead, please.
and that's good information to know, because I guess, if you go on Facebook a little bit, people think, oh, they nobody cares, that, they just weren't working that day and that sort of thing. So, it's good to know that it wasn't that. And I was sure of that. But, for your explanation, I do appreciate it. And really it was, I guess I wasn't aware that we were maybe short a few people for the cruise and stuff like that. And anyway, I appreciate your comments, Jeff, and I'll relay them out to the public. If I can add one further thing, and Jeff, I'm a dairy farmer, and the milk either gets picked up on Saturday or the Sunday. It has, and like I said, the weekends do just seem to be the worst time of the week. For snow, and it's just tough to get the trucks in and out, and we've been getting a few of the milk trucks hung up, and it's just anything you can think of to help alleviate it. I'm sure the people in South and North Sydenham and the south of St. Vincent would certainly appreciate it, because I think there's probably a few days some of your neighbors would almost run you out of town if they knew where you were, Jeff. So anyway, thanks for anything else you want to add.
No, just through your worship and the council. The team worked very hard over those few days, and we did everything possible. We had the techs in, hammering our equipment together, everything that was failing. They were getting it back up and running for the guys to get out and continue on with the snow event. We asked staff members that were off that weekend to come in. I personally came in and worked till there was 5 of us working until 11:30 the one night just to open the roads, so our taxpayers could get where they could. But there was 5 or 6 hours of each day that the roads were not in a great condition, and unfortunately the milk truck got stuck on Sideroad 3, and it's hard to be everywhere at once, but the team did a very good job in getting things opened up for everybody.
And if I may, we do appreciate, and relay that to your fellow workers, that we do appreciate it. And sorry if some of the constituents maybe don't quite see it that way in the heat of the moment, but because it does make life a little bit more miserable when you get somebody, trashing you on Facebook sort of thing. So do pass that along for me, Jeff.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Jeff, for not only for rising to the challenge with a short-staffed crew, but we really appreciate that efforts that you put forward. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I just wanted to start by adding on that Sunday, I was picking up friends at the airport, and I can tell you roads down country were in worse condition than ours were. And I will thank you, Jeff, as well, for all the salt and sand on the sidewalks. They've been pretty slippery, and I noticed today there's an extra dose of sand on the sidewalks, which is greatly appreciated. I did have a question, though, for CAO Armstrong and Director Voigt. Last week at our county council meeting, planning staff presented a report to us discussing the potential for planning approval delegation to lower tier staff. And I wanted to ask your thoughts, Rob, on whether you thought that was something of interest to this municipality. And we're talking about the potential for For moving approvals to lower tiers for subdivisions, condominiums, and part lot control approvals. So I'll turn that over to you. Thank you.
Over to you, Rob.
Through your worship.
Rob V.
I'll take a shot at it first. So staff is aware of that. We've just done a cursory review of that report. We haven't gone into the details of it. We understand the characteristics of it because of the changes that allow for that to be considered. I'll just highlight a few points there that we'll be considering, and then I think it might be appropriate, and this would be for council to perhaps ask us to come back with a response to council to understand what the characteristics of that are. But obviously, if there is a change in terms of who is processing those applications, that does have implications on us in terms of capacity, staffing, time, workload, all that stuff. However, there is inherently some savings because right now there's a little bit of overlap that would be avoided because the county is dealing with that, right? So essentially we run a complementary parallel process where we're deeply involved with those, and that helps support a lot of the community consultation portion of it because we're more quote on the ground here locally than the county is. So it allows for our citizens and stakeholders to engage with us with a kind of friendlier, more local faces, right? As they understand who they're dealing with that way. It's not that because that it's with the county that there is no public consultation. In fact, there really wouldn't be much change. It just means there'd be a little less overlap. There's probably a lot of other minor details that we'd have to consider. But again, I think I might put it to council to perhaps request of us to come back with a more fulsome report on what the implications of that would be. I'll turn it to Rob if he has anything else to add.
Through the worship, there's a lot of history and we were engaged in this process on how at planning staff, how we felt about the potential for down delegation of some, and then also even down delegations of approvals at the county level. At the end of the day, we would look for efficiencies and effective delivery of service within our means in doing that. I think we basically write all of the draft plan conditions and send them to the county, both incorporated agencies, and then they give the approval based on our recommendation. So I do see the opportunity for efficiencies in doing that. And as Rob mentioned, I think the best thing for us to do is to give a more wholesome review and look at the impacts on our operations.
Thank you, Rob.
If I may, Your Worship, I just wanted to thank Rob and Rob for those responses. And I think I'm hearing through you, Director Voigt, the possible request of council for a notice of motion so that you can go back and look at those potential advantages or disadvantages through this report. So I see you nodding your head. So, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor Kentner.
Yes, thank you. And through your worship, I would just like to point out to all concerned, we have a very expensive system of local government, 2 levels, which is extremely costly. And it has its advantages and disadvantages. And it's certainly a disadvantage when you have the 2 levels of local administration doing the same job and tripping over each other. So I think, and I think I have to be fair and say it was of some value at a time when we didn't have a lot of growth and development, but as Meaford is growing and developing, and we are having to increase our staff to handle planning matters, I think it's quite important that we soon sort out and not have the county and the local municipality both doing the same job. Thank you.
Anything further? No other inquiries? Then we'll move on. Thank you for that, councillors. And we're moving on now to point 8 on our agenda, motions and bylaws for decision. And the first is our consent agenda. These, there are 4 items that we have seen before, and they can be voted on as a unit, and we'll go through them. The recommendation for CAO 2022-03 is that council adopt the 2022 to 25 communication strategy as a guiding document in the preparation of future budgets. B is CAO 2022-04 is the request for approval of a grant in the amount of $262.73 for 36 Trowbridge Street East in accordance with the Downtown Community Improvement Plan. C is COM 2022-04 is the recommendation that the council limit the paid parking program to Memorial Park. And D is bylaw 2022-08 is a recommendation that this bylaw to authorize the execution of an encroachment agreement regarding 439001 Sydenham-Lakeshore Drive in the municipality of Meaford be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Bell, Councillor Bartley, thank you. All in favor of these 4 motions together, and that is carried. Thank you. 8.2 is our items for consideration. The first one is CAO 2022-05. Sure, I've got the right one here. Is the purchase of online building permit software. The recommendation reads that the council of the municipality of Meaford authorize the Director of Development Services to submit an expression of interest to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO/LAS, MPAC, and Electronic Permitting System Pilot Project, including implementation of Cloud Permit e-permitting software. And 2, authorize the Treasurer, Director of Financial Services to transfer up to $22,700 from the Information Technology Reserve Fund to fund the 2022 allocation of the new operating project budget for the purchase of the online electronic permitting software. Number 3 is approve the purchase of online building permit software from Cloud Permit for $107,356.80, including the municipality's non-refundable allocation of HST. And the 4th is, of course, to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into the necessary agreement. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to put that on the table? Councillor Vickers and Deputy Mayor, thank you. Any discussion on this? Councillor Vickers?
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. And, it seems like a great idea. Do we have any assurances that this actually works? Nothing worse than spending a bunch of money on a system that seemed to me when I was reading the report is somewhat new. Do you have faith, and do you have maybe a little bit of some examples, I guess, that it has worked in other municipalities? Is this going to Rob or? So that's my question. I don't mind spending money as long as I know that the money's well spent.
Over to you, Rob.
Through your worship, that's actually a good question. I've been involved in numerous purchases of software and the due diligence that municipalities have to go through for that. We have a number of our neighboring municipalities that are using this. They're listed on more for the audience, the citizens that are watching, on page 4 of this report. Kind of halfway down the page there, noting that these include Georgian Bluffs, Grey Highlands, West Grey, and Chatsworth, and Hanover. So we do have some neighbors having experience with that. More importantly, if you have a chance to look at the detail of the due diligence that was undertaken by MPAC and AMO, quite frankly, it's far more extensive than we could have ever done. They set up a system where those various groups came together, identified their criteria. Again, for the people at home, there's a number of these things identified within there, mostly on pages 3 and 4 of this report. Everything from the fine details of what the software can do, right to some interesting points about that the storage of the information here is maintained in Canada. So they went very deep in terms of their analysis of how well this would be supported. And we see that in the conversations I've had with the corporation that created this, they have, I can't remember the number, but hundreds of communities already using the various licenses that they have for this, not only in Ontario, but the US and in Europe as well. And every time they create one of these e-permitting packages, it's specific to that state or province's structure. So again, there's all kinds of inherent sort of intelligence in the way they've developed it, the overall review of it from AMO and MPAC. And then we also have the ability that this pilot project allows for 6 months of additional support getting it up to speed, if you will. So that's the long answer of I am quite confident that that this will work.
Yeah, and that's really what I was looking for, Rob. Just, hearing it from somebody's mouth is sometimes more reassuring than reading it from a report. So thanks, Rob.
You have someone to blame then.
Wouldn't say that.
Okay, Councillor Kentner and then Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, through you, your worship. I think now is the time for sure. I don't recall it coming up during the budget debate. Is it in the budget or not?
If I can answer the first part of that, and then I'll turn it to Rob, through your worship. So it was previously in the budget, it was noted there that unfortunately at the time, the analysis that was done, that there wasn't this opportunity for this kind of software to be available. And so the money got put, was essentially put aside for future use. I will note the question that was not asked, but will come up next is that just a reminder to council and the public that the cost of this, of the 107,000, that's across a 3-year time period, and is also comes out of the building permit application. So it's not something that is a burden on the land taxpayers of our municipality. I'll let Rob speak to the details of where it came out of the budget.
Just to clarify, in 2 previous budget years, we actually had this as a project to move forward with. However, there wasn't a program at that time that made sense for us from a integration with our current property system. So we never proceed with it. So that's why the funds then went from the budget out of building at that point in time into the building or into the IT reserve for future proceeding with this project. So if we had known about this opportunity during budget, we would have put it in there with no impact for it coming to reserve. So you would have seen the same result as you're seeing today.
Thanks, Rob. And Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Basically, I didn't have a question. I was going to comment that this is coming out of reserves and permit fees. It's all paid for without touching the tax base. So that was my
Not out of the
comment.
property tax levy. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, your worship. And yeah, assuming that this all works nice and smooth. I did see in the report a comment that new assessment into the system will come earlier, which will improve the financial position of the municipality. And that's good news. And I just wanted to share that again at County Council this week, a notice of motion came forward from Councillor Weber, Mayor of TBM, and he'll be requesting support at our next meeting for any additional assessments to be maintained by the municipality in which they're realized for the year in which that comes on board. So that could be hopefully a little bit of additional revenue for us.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think this will be a real positive step forward for folks. I know our fellow councillor Greenfield always gives reports about the building permits throughout the year. And this report said that here we've done $101 million last year. And so if we can help folks and contractors apply online for what they're doing, they're going to get those permits. And if it helps them expedite their work quicker, so much the better. So I think this is a good thing.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Nothing further? Then I will call the question. All in favor, of this recommendation going forward, and that is carried. Thank you. B is COM 2022-06, a firefighter certification consultation, and the recommendation is lengthy on this. First, I just want to say how comprehensive this report was to Matt and our chief. You're going to come forward to speak to the issue and to the recommendation coming forward. With that, then I won't read the recommendation. If you've got, do you have some comments that you wish to make, Chief? Okay, he's here to answer questions, not to give a, okay. Councillor Greenfield?
Have we had a mover? To
Yes,
put
we
this-
do need a mover and a seconder to put this on the table.
I'd be glad to.
And you'll
move
do that. Thank you.
recommendation.
And Councillor Bell will second it. Thank you. All right. And the questions, Councillor Bartley?
Yeah, I have a question, Madam Mayor, and it'd be to the chief. So what prompted this? They want everybody trained 2 notches higher. Is there something that happened in Ontario that prompted this? And what is the chance the provincial government is going to help pay for it?
So to be honest with you, Matt and I have had this conversation multiple times, and I've had a number of conversations with other chiefs, including the OFM, trying to understand why they're pushing for this. The answer is not clear. It was an initiative that was taken probably about 4 or 5 years ago and was taken off the table when the Conservative government got in, but they have seemed to have retabled it now. In essence, it is a good idea to have all firefighters across the province trained to a particular standard, particularly when we're working with other departments. So when, you know, ITFD and Meaford work together, or Blue Mountains or Chatsworth, and we all know that all our firefighters are at the same certification level, it definitely makes for a safer fire ground. But as for the answer of, here's the particular reason that we're doing it, that hasn't actually come to the surface. We have asked for additional funding through the OFAC, and obviously we're asking for it in this report as well. The OFM says that they will give the support that is necessary to make this achievable, but they haven't come to the table with what that is. And that is one of the other things that we're asking for in the report, is to help have that clarification.
I think it's also important to note that through all of the sessions that both the chief and I have sat through related to this, the Office of the Fire Marshal has repeatedly said that this won't cost municipalities anything, because we should all already be training to these levels. That's a wonderful thing to say, and it is obviously something that we would very much like to be doing, but to say that all departments are training to all of these certification levels is demonstrably not true.
Councillor Vickers, and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And your statement there, Matt, I agree with you. It's nice to have all that training, and to the chief also. It's nice to have all that training, but one thing is the cost. The other thing is time. We don't have full-time fire department or firefighters. So I guess my question will be, if this goes through, do you see our inability to find people with enough time to do all this training? Is that a concern?
Absolutely, it is a concern. Not only is it trying to find the actual trainers to actually come do the physical training and having staff on board that are able to do the training, it's to get the firefighters to have the time to do the training. Our volunteer firefighters are already giving 96 hours a year just to keep our standards in place as they are, plus responding to 215 calls a year, plus taking care of anything that we do in the municipality in the way of charity work, public education, things along those lines. These are people that have, you know, families, jobs, everything else. And unfortunately, firefighting, you know, is very much part of their lifestyle. It is, I like to call it, what would I call it? Anyway, I'll come back to that. A lifestyle, but it doesn't put food on their table and it doesn't pay their mortgage. So how do I ask, you know, the additional training we estimate is going to be 18 and a half days. That's more than 3 weeks of holiday time that these firefighters are going to have to take. Most of these people only have 3 weeks a year. And, you know, we're already asking a lot of them. It's definitely going to be a challenge. And one of the things that we have asked and we are hoping for is the OFM to come up with better training solutions, online training solutions, ones that perhaps people can do in the evenings or on weekends online to help prepare for these exams.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Smith and Chief Allen, thank you. And recognizing that we're kind of over a barrel here with the province and trying to look for some positive out of all of this beyond the excellent training that our firefighters will have. Is there any potential with our great facility, assuming that we have people to do the training, that we can partner with neighboring fire departments to do some training here in Meaford and possibly generate some revenue from this?
I don't know if we'll be able to generate revenue right off the bat, but definitely partnering with the surrounding fire departments to be able to utilize other resources and hopefully use our training center is definitely something we've already started down that road. I had the Grey County Fire Chiefs over last week. Rob and I showed them through the training center, hoping to entice them to come out and start utilizing it. Unfortunately, we are taking the approach right now of please just come use it because it is here, with the expectation down the road that maybe they can help with maintenance and things like that. The challenge is the regional training centers, which is, you know, again, run by a volunteer out of Grey County who has a full-time job, you know, struggles to stay on top of it to the level of full-time and trainer would.
I think as well, the prospect for shared training is perhaps for future firefighters. Right now, we would have 36 firefighters who needed to take auto extrication certification, who need to take confined space certification courses and so on. If every department's in that boat, which they would be, we obviously can't train 9 times 36 at the same time. So I think, you know, the figures that we've included for the cost of doing this up front are based on running 2 sessions for each of those courses, because reality says that the 18 to 20 people is the most that you can have in one of these training courses at any given time. If in the future we have a recruit class of 6 and Great Highlands have a recruit class of 4 and ITFD have a recruit class of 9, then I could see there being some prospect for shared training there, but not right up front, I don't think.
Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Chief Allen. Just for clarification, what role does the firefighting facility at Georgian College in Owen Sound play in firefighter training?
Right at the moment, very little. They are meant for firefighting on ships. We do utilize their facilities for live fire training, but it's a kind of a yearly rental that we do for a weekend so that we can put our firefighters through a live fire training scenario each year. Other than that, they are not part of the regional trainings coordinators, and they don't provide those additional firefighting courses at this time.
I think that is probably one of the things that we would look at if this gets put in place. Although you've got a pretty comprehensive report there, I like to think this has been a very, very fast turnaround for us. We've had 30 days as of today to know anything about it, and in reality about 12 days, because that's when they really told us the information. So I think our situation right now is that we're saying these are the things we want to know more about. If this comes into effect, we'll have to do a lot more work to figure out how we would make this happen, because I just don't think the chief or I really knows that right now.
Who do I have? Councillor Kentner? No, you're good, Councillor. Greenfield is next, and then Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think maybe Councillor Bell had his hand up. Oh, okay. I want to jump in on you. Thanks, and thanks, Chief Courtney. And I don't expect you to explain the rationale, but I never could figure out yet why the Ontario Fire College was discontinued up in the Muskokas. I never really did get an answer for that.
Money, Councillor Greenfield. The province funded it and now they don't have to.
Yeah. But I was thinking more of the why, not just simply the action that was taken. Anyway, I don't expect you folks to answer for our provincial representative. $200,000, Chief Allen, over the next 6 years to properly train our firefighter crew. I don't mean to be unfair by my question, but is there any way you can see in the line of your fire department that we can kind of ease this $200,000 expenditure? As I know we need more, we need trucks, we need equipment. Is this simply something that has to be done? And are there any other areas we might be able to find cost saving chances?
So let me answer this in a little bit longer winded way. So definitely this is an estimate that we came up with very quickly based on, cost of hourly wage, some courses, time that firefighters would have to put in, and certification. And that's what's being driven by the province. The challenge that we have in Meaford is we're a single hall. So unlike a Toronto or an Ottawa or a Montreal or a London, which has multiple halls, they'll take a small crew of 10 people and say, hall number 3, you're water rescue. Hall number 4, you're a rope rescue. Rescue. Hall number, 6, you're a heavy rescue. You guys can go train to that standard, and they get a pocket that needs to be trained to that level. In Meaford, I have one hall. That means all my firefighters have to be trained to all the disciplines, which means at the end of the day, we're going to have an elite fire department because I can't spread it out. We are already in talks with ITFD on how we can share some of those responsibilities, like high angle rescue. Well, perhaps we hand that off to ITFD so that we don't have to do it, but we take on another one that we can, in turn share, like confined space. So is there better ways that we can do it down the road? There might be, but at the end of the day, it's going to be cost of salary and cost of the course that's really going to drive it. The other way we can save money is reduce the number of services that we provide to the municipality. Unfortunately, I'm in the middle of doing our community risk assessment, and we have a large number of risks within our municipality. We have a large body of water. I have to do we have to do ice water rescue. I mean, you could decide not to as a council, but I don't think it'd be a wise decision with the harbor and all the ice fishermen that we have. We could get out of auto extrication, but we have Highway 26 that's running through town. We could get out of aerial operations and offload the ladder, but we have a requirement with the base to provide that. It becomes some tough decisions have to be made.
Chief, does every firefighter on board with us have to have the same training?
So,
if this was the case?
So here's the challenge. And again, we've been having 1,000 conversations. So we thought, you know what, we'll just do teams. We'll do a team of 10 for ice water rescue. And it's, we send those 10 off, they get certified, we're in great shape. Tuesday afternoon happens. We've got, a small child out on the ice. We send the page out, and those 10 firefighters, because again, they're volunteers, they work, they're out of town, they're not available. Now, what do I do? So it comes down to that catch-22 is, yeah, we can definitely have specialized teams, but ones if they're not available. So even the Ontario Fire Marshal has says, we are strongly recommending that if you offer the services, that all firefighters in that hall have that certification so that you can actually respond to it. Because again, we have it in our bylaw, we actually have to respond to it. So yes, it will be challenging
Good.
times ahead.
Mhm. And Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor and Chief and Matt. When I read through this report, my overall view of it, coming from the background I have, is, and the question was asked about why, this is very, very true in an apprenticeship from the province, doing standardization of training, standardization of time. When you're qualified and you're done and you say you've got the certificate, it is portable. It can be taken to other places. Even in the report between you two, I'm sure you worked together on it. It said once you got firefighters trained to a level like this, it's the same in the apprenticeship field I work with. You can't hold them back from getting another job when they're certified and trained, and they come from a wonderful place called Meaford, and they're off, and we've trained them. And as an individual and as an employer, I never stood back and said to people that I've trained, no, you can't go, you can't do that. So we've trained them, we give them this higher level, and they are at liberty to move on. So this is a logistical bit of a nightmare to achieve this. I can see the background from the province wanting to have this just as a blanket statement to be done. But when we see in the report, I think Mr. Smith, you alluded to the fact that I wrote down we had 12 days to basically comment on this. So this is really fast. This is super deep and super important. And we're being asked here within a very short period of time to make decisions on it. So I just have a basic question. Can this municipality say no to this?
So I think Councillor Bell raises a number of interesting points there, and I'll perhaps go backwards. No, we can't just say no. We're a creature of the province, so if the province says that we must do something, then we must do it.
Yeah.
The consultation period's a problem. AMCTO today, and I know OAFC of the Fire Chiefs Association is putting in comments to say that this should be a longer consultation period. I specifically asked at the webinar 12 days ago, would they consider extending the consultation period? And the answer I got was that we should put feedback into the consultation process that we would like the consultation process to be longer. Which, is as ridiculous as it sounds. I think, to Councillor Bell's comment about certification levels and standardization, both the Chief and I, and we've talked to Chief Gautreau about this as well, we all agree. In principle, this is a really, really sensible thing to do. But there are some problems attached. And I think that's what we're trying to get to with item 3 in the resolution. When we say support in principle, the imposition of discipline-specific certification requirements, but express our concern about the implementation of these requirements without significant additional consideration related to the impact on volunteer fire departments. Because it's volunteer firefighter departments that are going to feel the brunt of this. If you're a full-time department, you can do, as Chief Allen's just talked about, have different stations, do different things, or you've got a lot more time to do training because you've got people there and you're paying them already and so on. We don't have that. I will say that I think we're in better shape than many places in the province are going to be on this one. The Chief will correct me when I get this wrong, but something like 95% of our people are already fully certified at Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2. That's a huge number. There will be very few fire volunteer departments that are like that. So we're in good shape, but it's still going to be hard for us. So it'll be very hard for others.
Yeah, so Matt, I'll jump in for 2 seconds. I've been reached out a couple of friends of mine that are chiefs in other departments, particularly down towards Ottawa. And they happen they don't even have Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2 certifications in their, for their firefighters or their officers. So on top of the money that I would be asking for from, or we have to come up with for the technical side of the training, they've got to get the Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2, and he's estimating $280,000 just to get to that first tier before he even gets into the technical training. Which is going to push him well into the almost $600,000 to $700,000.
given what you've just said, how likely is it that the recommendation that there be more time thought about this, more consideration given to small rural volunteer fire departments? One size does not fit all, as we know. That will have some kind of impact on this decision. And if it doesn't have any impact on the decision, when would it be expected to be rolled out?
So normally with these consultations, and council knows, we don't normally comment on these consultations because oftentimes there's a decision being made, or more importantly, people like our representative groups like AMO, AMCTO, or AOFC have sort of taken that responsibility for us. But normally I would say that if the feedback was kind of universal, then it would disappear. And that's happened with a few things over the last few years. And in fact, happened with this idea way back when the Conservatives removed it shortly after the last election. Having said that, if I had to guess, and it's only a guess, because who knows what decisions get made at the provincial level, I think this is going forward. And I will be surprised if it isn't going forward as it stands. And the reason I say that is that when the chief and I sat in on a webinar run by the ministry in the Office of the Fire Marshal the other day, the Solicitor General herself was there at the start to do an introduction. The Fire Marshal led it. And then when we went into questions, I asked a question, and I can't actually remember what it was right now. And the Solicitor General herself popped up to answer the question. I have never seen that before. It's very rare that when you're doing these sorts of technical briefings that the minister is actually there responding to questions from stakeholders. The fact that she was tells me that it may well be a done deal. But I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because I hope we get a lot of this information that we're asking for, but I wouldn't put money on it.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And one final question for Mr. Smith and the Chief. So am I hearing, I think there was some suggestion in the report that we may have to hire an additional potentially full-time person to do the training at our fire department, or does the OFM send out qualified people to do certain aspects of the discipline training? How do you think that might work?
So I'll jump in initially. So that's one of the challenges that we have, and we're asking the OFM, particularly from the OFAC, is how they're going to help provide some of those support mechanisms. So right now the plan is they will not provide any trainers. They will send out evaluators to actually administer the test, and they will come at no cost to our department so that our firefighters can write the test and then do the practical components. But the actual bringing our firefighters up to the standard so that they can challenge the exam, presently there is no support being supplied by the OFM. So that's one of the things we're hoping for is trainers and an online platform that will help support that.
And so I think we did mention in there that this might have staffing implications, because it might. And again, that goes to Councillor Kentner's earlier point. I think there's a lot of things we've got to figure out here if it happens. Almost all of our training right now is delivered by the volunteers themselves. And so asking those volunteers to not just become certified in confined space, but then go off and learn how to become a certified trainer in confined space is asking more and more and more of our people. If we were to have somebody who was employed to do training, we could potentially get them certified to do that training. And then to your earlier question, maybe we could hire them out to other local departments to help them get some of that training. However, there's still a risk that we talked about with Councillor Bell of, we get somebody trained up to deliver all of this training, then suddenly they look very attractive as a training officer to the City of Ottawa, who's probably going to pay them twice what we're going to pay them. And so, you know, those are the continuous difficulties there, I think. There's potentially some options, but none of them are perfect.
And at the end of the day, we can officially say that Meaford will, and along with a lot of other small municipalities around us, will become the farm team for the bigger fire departments.
Yeah.
At our expense.
Yeah.
A firefighter will go and take the course through a college and pay $17,000, $18,000. We're presently doing it for, it costs me about $12,000 a firefighter right now to bring them up to the point that they can climb onto a truck. With the additional training, that number is going to go up even more. So at the end of the day, people have opportunities to go to volunteer fire departments, get paid to do the training, and do some volunteer time, but the chances are that they will be moving on.
And I think we should also just note, and I know it does say it in the report, you know, we talk about $190,000 here to get our current staff up to these standards. That's if we can bring in that training to the municipality and train our people in groups. If we have to send people away to get that training, we're estimating that one person is costing us $1,100 per course. That adds up really, really quickly.
Matt and Chief, I know you had very little time to really even think about the impacts of what this means. So you probably haven't had much time to contact other small fire departments, rural fire departments, to get their take on what this means to them. And so that's one question. Were you able to see how others felt about this going forward? And the second part, would there be any benefit whatsoever in sending this extremely thorough and comprehensive report to other smaller rural, well, not necessarily rural, but smaller fire departments to promote and endorse that with perhaps a secondary submission again, if there were endorsements?
So I'll answer the first one. You know, very short turnaround. And again, just to make sure that we were on the same page, at least from this report, from a Meaford standpoint, we had the chief from ITFD come over and join us so that we could work on this report together. So this isn't a report from Matt and myself. The fire chief of ITFD was there as well. So we were, you know, getting that input. And then at the fire chiefs, Grey County Fire Chiefs Association meeting last week, we had an in-depth conversation about it as well. And they're all feeling the same pressures and trying to figure out how they're going to do it. And then I reached out even further to a number of departments where I have friends to see how they're feeling. Not a single one of them went, hey, this is great or good. And the big reason is a lot of the certifications and what they're asking to they want us to get don't even have testing available yet. So they're about to roll out the requirement for a certification when they haven't even figured out what the certification and the testing is.
Doesn't fill us with a great deal of confidence.
Makes two of us.
I think to the second part of your question, Madam Mayor, I don't believe it's worth circulating it to the rest of the municipalities in the province. It's not something I ever really advised council. I think the closing date of the consultation is today. So literally once you've passed a resolution, I'll send a letter while I'm sitting here. I think that, you know, our conglomerative groups are submitting things, and you know the OAFC voice is much bigger than ours anyway, and in fact they had us that we submit any comments based on their comments. The trouble is I haven't seen their comments yet, so I can't really do that. So I think theirs is the better voice. To a certain extent, it's good that we put this in because it says what we're feeling. But I think a bigger part of it is that the chief and I wanted to make sure the council's aware of what's coming, because it's potentially a big deal.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks again, Your Worship. If I may, through you to Mr. Smith. Matt, in your report, you've mentioned that AMO has been involved in this. Do you think there be anything more from them? I mean, we do have a provincial election coming up in June. I didn't know if AMO could put any more pressure on this issue or not.
So I'm just scrolling through my emails because I have a feeling I saw something from AMO this morning about this, which may have been sent today or on Friday. Yep, AMO. So basically what they have done is they are saying, sorry, give me 1 second, I'll read it, that they have responded to the draft regulations. While AMO believes in principle that certification is a step in the right direction, it has not endorsed the draft regulations. AMO believes the 30-day consultation period was insufficient and did not reflect the broad-based municipal engagement necessary for regulations of this scale and scope. More thorough engagement with the municipal sector is necessary for the province to fully appreciate the effects such regulations will have on municipal governments and their fire services. In a letter to the Solicitor General, AMO has requested a 2-month extension to allow for an appropriate amount of time for ministry officials to brief municipal leaders and therefore municipal councils to be able to thoughtfully reply back on the draft regulations. AMO has also requested an extension to the implementation period, financial support during that period, better alignment with the community risk assessments that must be completed by 2025, and a review of the provision of fire services to unincorporated areas. So they've submitted those comments. I think they're good comments that in the most part echo what we've said. I think it is the provincial election that makes me think that this consultation period probably won't be extended, because we only have a couple of months left for this government to pass regulations. So I suspect that's probably not going to happen, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, thank you. I dare say a fire truck convoy is out of the question.
But I just wondered, made a quick note, might this be an opportunity for a delegation at the AMO conference to the minister? The impact on smaller volunteer fire departments.
Maybe. I think we need to have a think about what
maybe
what
we
our
can
approach
park
would
that
be.
thought,
Yeah.
but certainly something to think about, Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This certainly looks like a logistical nightmare. And indulge me with my thought process, and you can tell me if it's the silliest thing you ever heard. But is it possible through the fire marshal's office that when somebody hires a firefighter, they would have to refund their training to the department that they got trained in? I know it's never been done. You might have to start somewhere, but I believe that's something that should be started into the process.
So that sort of deal for training is something that does appear in some employment contracts. So I think, in fact, we have done this as a municipality before, in that we've sponsored a previous member of staff to go and do an additional piece of training that wasn't absolutely required, but was good for them. And then they left the organization and had to pay us back the cost of that. So anything's possible. I think in this case, it would put a lot of people off becoming firefighters in the first place, because 18,000 plus is a lot of money to ask somebody to pay back. And I've never seen it that another organization has to pay on that behalf.
Oh, I appreciate that. Not a chance was I suggesting that the firefighter pay it back. The hiring municipality that gains that firefighter trained should have to pay part of the training back to the municipality they stole them from.
So I think that would have to be legislation.
Where do we start it? Or is this silly?
The challenge with that is, so getting your certifications and then moving on to a full-time department, we get a lot of firefighters that give us 5 or 6 really good years as being a volunteer firefighter, because they do get the training from us, and we're very lucky to have them. And then they do move on to a full-time fire department because volunteering, they realize it's the career that they want to go with. If we put something like that in place, then you would have Toronto's, London's starting to hire from the schools instead, which means that we would lose those people who want to move on to the next round because they already work for our municipality. They would just have to, resign before they started applying for the job.
You've answered my question.
Sorry.
We're in a pickle.
I don't think we're in a pickle. I think there's a lot of challenges associated with this. But I think if it happens, we'll make it work. We make almost everything work generally. It will cost some money, and it might cost us a few firefighters now and in the future. But in the long run, it's better for the community. It just might take us a few years to get to that long run.
Means we have to drive more relationships, and we have to work closer together with other departments as well, which at the end of the day is better for the municipality and the people within it as well.
And that brings up the question, I guess, with mutual aid and those arrangements that you've been working so hard on with other rural communities. Is this a possibility for training to set up that kind of shared responsibility for, for different aspects of it? Obviously, we wouldn't ask Chatsworth perhaps to be water certified, but I'm just wondering if that's an opportunity to be looking further down the road.
Absolutely. We've already started those conversations. And there are certain ones that we have to do, like, ice water rescue. I can't get another department to do it because it would take them too long to arrive before
Right.
the person perished. But definitely high angle rescue would be something that we could work with another department. Again, we have a vested interest with ITFD, and they've got a really great high angle rescue
Right.
team. Definitely, we could work on making sure that they're the ones that take on those calls within our area. That takes a level of training off of our requirement, but that would be unfair then for us not to come back and say, hey, we'll do confined space or some other discipline that helps them.
Yeah. Shared responsibility.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, mutual aid is like for like. So, it's hard for me to do mutual aid with a ladder to an organization that doesn't have a ladder, because mutual aid is supposed to be additional.
Yeah, this would
Very
in
true.
effect be service agreements.
Yeah.
We would contract to say we will provide the township of Georgian Bluffs with confined space rescue, while they would provide us with road rescue, for instance.
And we've already started that conversation.
Good. Thank you for that. Anything further, council? Then I will call the question. All in favor of this recommendation going forward as presented, reluctantly approved.
Thank you very much for everybody's time.
Thank you very much for the work that you've done on this. They said it was a very, very thorough report, for sure. Before we, can we maybe just finish this last one before we go into committee of the whole, and then we'll take a quick break. The next one is DEV 2022-03 is a request for an exemption from the Planning Act, section 45. The recommendation is to approve that exemption pursuant to section 45, 1.4 of the Planning Act to allow the Committee of Adjustment to grant a decision on minor variance application A01-2022 applicable to 145166 on the 16th Sideroad. No mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bartley and Councillor Greenfield. Thank you. Any comments, questions on this? Yeah, Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So I read the report and I agree with staff's opinion that the variance is quite minor. A manufacturer could only produce a certain size. They no longer do that, and the size they produce is somewhat larger in a footprint. So I agree with the report and I support this.
Thank you. Anything further from council? All in favor of this motion going forward, and that is carried. All right, we'll move into committee of the whole, but first I think we need a 5-minute break to stretch. We come back at 2:53. 2-minute reprieve.
I'll just went downstairs.
Oh, did he?
How was Suzanne today?
Better, quite a bit better.
That's good. Feeling more comfortable and
It just, I think it was kind of rough the first couple of days because she really, the anesthetic had worn off before the operation.
Get going
We'll
here.
get going. Let's really take you
I
away.
think we'll go. We've got quorum and we'll move on to motion to move into committee of the whole. Please. Councillor Bartley, Councillor Bell at 2:57. All in favor, moving into committee of the whole, and that is carried. First one off the mark is the Community Services COM 2022-07 is a Meaford Public Library Service Agreement. Recommendation that enact a bylaw to enter into a service agreement related to joint position of library CEO and municipality CAO. A mover and a seconder, please, to put that on the table. Councillor Bartley, Deputy Mayor, thank you. Any comments for questions of staff on this one? I'm seeing none. Call the question. All in favor of this motion being accepted, and that is carried. Maybe through this before Paul gets back. We'll have lots of discussion in the next one. Here he is. Sorry, Paul.
Had to get a drink of water.
The next one is CAO 2022-07. Is the recommendation reads that committee of the whole recommends that council accept the summary reports from the consultants for information purposes, to direct staff to engage with the public, stakeholders, and development industry representatives, including hosting one workshop with council to discuss proposed changes to the engineering standards and complete the update of the engineering standards bylaw. And 3, direct staff to engage with the public, stakeholders, and development industry representatives, including hosting one workshop with council to discuss the proposed site plan design standards and to implement the standards to coincide with other standards being updated as part of the official plan update. And I need a mover and a seconder, please, to put that on the table. Councillor Bartley, Councillor Bell again. Questions for Rob, staff on this? No questions coming forward? Councillor Bell.
Well, thanks, Madam Mayor. And I think that this particular subject is one that always comes up after we have someone who has a proposal. They would like to do something. We have the public, they come out to the meeting. We welcome those comments for and against, and then we end up making a decision. that says, well, we're going to grant this, but there's going to be these conditions put on with the site plan agreement. And we have had recently in the packages that we've received a few times when some of those conditions may or may not been fully realized, or the people who came out to the meetings said, what does one sort of, you have to put in trees. And then they do put in trees, but they only put in a 1 foot high tree. And so when we look at what they're going to say in the site plan agreement, maybe we can get to the point where it's really defined what will be in place. The expectations match the results which are in place. So I think this will be good when we go to that training session and we find out and have comments back and forth. So I look forward to this one.
Okay, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciated this report. It really explained everything that's going on with the engineering standards and site plan processes as well. And so my question relates to timelines. And again, I appreciate this because I think it will, as Councillor Bell said, it will help developers and it will expedite approvals all the way around. But I'm wondering, Director Boyd, if you could speak a little bit to potential timelines connected with this.
Through your worship. So what we're dealing with here is essentially two sets of standards. One is the engineering standards, which is very much what it sounds like. It is those engineering drawings that show how things are to be built. And that's, in simplest terms, that's mostly infrastructure type stuff. It's all those pipes under the ground, as well as the public realm improvements that are seen in our roadways, lighting, the street surface, the sidewalks, all that kind of thing. The other part of it is the site plan or community design standards. Often municipalities have those as guidelines. You will see that when we go through the process, we will strongly recommend that those are adopted as not as guidelines, which are surprisingly easy to push back against from those folks that don't want to play nice. They work well for the folks that they work well with, right? So to better protect the municipality and our goals that we have identified in the official plan, it will be identified as standards, and we'll detail how that goes moving forward. In terms of the timing for these, it was identified to essentially, as best as possible, coincide with the official plan update process. That doesn't mean that we have to wait until the official plan is adopted. But I didn't want to sort of commit to a time frame that I didn't have full control over. That being said, it was related to, as we get more of the community consultation process done with the official plan, and we're confirming the interest that people have in terms of urban design or community design things. So does that relate to the materials of buildings? Does it relate more to streetscapes and the urban forest? Is it more about how parks are designed? All those various aspects. Once we get that confirmed, because I don't think we're going to have a lot of surprises, but we're going through this OP process, which is a bit of a confirmation of what we are moving forward with. As that starts to gel, then we can launch that next stage of wrapping these two projects up, right? Both of them will have their own level of stakeholder and community consultation. The report just identifies essentially a minimum one workshop with council, but there will be more than just the one opportunity for the public. And then, of course, the entire development industry that is represented here in our community to speak to it as well, right? So it really is, if I were to do my best guess, it would be this calendar year. And very likely that it would at least be initiated with this council sitting right now to be part of that. I can't confirm that we would be able to wrap it up before election, just again, because we need to get that input from the community gelled so that we know that we are on the right path.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Kentner.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I'd just like to comment briefly on this. Very important part of a piece to underpin all the work that's going into the review of the official plan. And I found this whole report extremely interesting and valuable. And I've done a post on it on my Facebook page to encourage all the people who are so interested in all the developments taking shape in the municipality to take a read on this and just see how this report underpins and strengthens everything we're doing there. And I want to congratulate our 3 senior staff members who did this report because I think, and I really encourage reading it. And I feel too that this is a case where we've gotten good value from our consultants. Oftentimes I wonder and criticize, why we need as many consultants as we sometimes have. But in this case, I particularly found their input very helpful.
Thank you. Anything further? Seeing no further questions, Rob, I will call the question in favor of this recommendation as presented. And that is carried. Well done, thank you. C is a DEV 2022-04 is a consent agreement. The recommendation reads that council enact a bylaw to authorize a consent agreement pertaining to vacant lands known as Concession C, east part of Lot 34, Reference Plan 16R 5412 and parts 1 and 2 in the former township of Sydenham. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bartley and Councillor Greenfield. Questions, comments of staff on this one? Not seeing any questions at this point. If you see again, I'll call the question. All in favor of this recommendation proceeding, and that is carried. The financial services, FIN 2022-02, the business improvement area budget. The recommendation reads that council enact a bylaw to adopt the 2022 operating and capital budgets for the Meaford BIA and approve enacting the necessary provisions in the 2022 tax rates bylaw to raise the lower BIA levy cap to $357 for 2022. And 3, approve enacting the necessary provisions in the 2022 tax rates bylaw to raise the upper BIA levy cap to $595 for 2022. Mover and a seconder to put that on the table, please. Councillor Bell and Deputy Mayor. Good report again. Any questions of staff, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of this recommendation going forward, and that is carried.
Excuse me, Your Worship. When I was late getting back from my break, did you vote on A already about the library?
Yes, we did.
You did. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
unanimous. And the final one, FIN 2022-03 is going to, we're pulling that one from discussion today. It will be returned at a later date. Let's move on now to updates from members to appointed county council committees and local boards. And first off the mark, as usual, is our deputy mayor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Grey County Council did meet successfully in a hybrid meeting last Thursday with 11 members attending in person and 9 virtually. And definitely kudos to the county IT staff. It worked really smoothly. Warden Hicks chaired the meeting with the agenda slightly out of order to keep timing running smoothly. Council heard from Dr. Era, who shared that with our local indicators such as long-term care and school outbreaks, hospital admission numbers and so on, with those numbers being in positive territory, Grey County is in a good position to lift our local emergency status as soon as the province provides the green light to do so. 60% of our eligible residents have received their third vaccine dose to date. Grey County has a $363,100 surplus from 2021, which will be transferred to specific reserves. These unspent funds resulting from 2021 project postponements primarily will be transferred from reserves to be spent in 2022 to complete the unfinished projects. Nadia DeSanti from WSP Consulting presented the age-friendly community strategy for Grey. The vision from this plan is Grey County and its communities will create inclusive opportunities for people of all ages to actively participate in all stages of life and to thrive physically and economically with dignity and independence. With this report completed, Grey is now able to present an application to the WHO to receive an age-friendly community designation. Grey would then be identified on their international map and would qualify for more implementation grants. 5 of the main aspects of the work plan relate to housing, cultural activities and attraction, the need for rural broadband, doctor recruitment, and inclusivity. 116 action plan items have been identified in the plan, and the ask from the report is for county staff to consider hiring a staff member dedicated to their implementation. The second presentation was from David Morris and May Yip of Welcoming Communities Grey Bruce. In 2021, 405,000 immigrants were welcomed to Canada. This year, we expect at least 420,000. Grey Bruce is working hard to attract and retain newcomers to our counties. New residents are assisted with basic activities such as transportation, housing, employment, banking, and so on. Many projects such as New to Grey, Making Grey Bruce Home, Rural Pathways for Visible Minority Women, and Making Grey Bruce Home to International Talents are underway in this regard. Welcoming Communities and Grey County staff are also engaged with international students at Georgian College and hopes that some of them at least will choose to remain living and working in Grey Bruce once they graduate. Deepika Gupta oversees the GB LIP, Grey Bruce Local Immigration Partnership, also focused on supporting newcomers to our counties. And the other presentation I've already spoken to in relation to planning approval delegations. So I'll turn it over to you, Your Worship, if there's anything you want to add.
Done well, thank you. And you might as well continue on. You've got Economic Development Advisory Committee next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes. ECDev met since we last had our council meeting as well, and there were 2 presentations on that day. We met the first one was Scott Gooch and Kimberly Rogers, and they spoke about quite an aggressive project that they are undertaking called Christmas on the Bay. And probably most of council has heard about this by now, but for our listening audience, Christmas on the Bay is a 4-day Christmas outdoor market to be held the first weekend of December, right here in the Market Square. The current focus is to establish a steering committee. One of our members of the Economic Development Advisory Committee volunteered to join the Christmas on the Bay group, and she will provide marketing insights. So that was greatly appreciated. 16 wooden structures are to be built so that they will house the various vendors. There'll be fire pits and a stage for live entertainment and a bar, lots of lights, and they're looking to bring in high-end products for the market. It's very exciting and, as I say, aggressive undertaking, and we can just imagine how enchanting the Market Square will be when this comes together. I think it has the potential to be a real draw and a destination making event for our municipalities. So if anyone listening would like to support it, please let us know. The second presentation was the Regional Economic and Employment Survey for TC Energy's pump storage project. Paul Blay of MDB Insight was present and requested input from the committee on local and regional impacts of the TC proposal. Concerns were certainly brought forward regarding workforce and housing. TC is working with Georgian College to set up a trades program to support people wishing to become skilled trades professionals that might potentially work on the site or within the immediate area. The pre-construction stage is to be 623 jobs. As I say, pre-construction and during construction, and they're saying now long-term 75 jobs with 23 being direct. They are saying that the pre-construction GDP from this project is $2.28 billion. It's a big number. And operationally, $984 million GDP. There was a lot of discussion about how this project could support local businesses and how it could help attract people to Meaford. And other concerns were discussed about roads and safety and the fish in Georgian Bay and so on. We were asked to look at the proposal as to whether it supports growing our local economy, workforce development, and environmental stewardship and climate change. And I think it's important to mention that even though we had this discussion at the Economic Development Advisory Committee, that does not mean that the committee had taken a position on supporting or not supporting the project. We were just asked to provide our input for this particular study, and we were happy to do so. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You're good there. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last Wednesday, Councillor Vickers and I were involved in our monthly Grey Sauble Conservation Authority meeting. A relatively short meeting as those timelines usually go. Our CAO, Mr. Lanthier, took us through the procedure that all of the authorities had to develop as far as requirements for providing services and which ones were expected of the authorities and which ones were perhaps up to them to provide and the funding and so on and so forth. It's I just want to comment that it has taken, especially Mr. Lanthier and a lot of the senior staff over at Grey Sauble, it's taken them a lot of time to come up with these responses to the provincial guidelines or decrees, whichever you want to call them. And this is time that they can't spend with other business, the more normal conservation authority businesses. So it has been quite an extensive and expensive ordeal for the authorities. It seems unfortunate that the province has painted all of the 36 conservation authorities with one brush, and that's anyway, all I want to say on that. We got a report on our year-end budget reserves, and of course, we always wish we had more, but the numbers look pretty good. The authority agreed to appoint two members to an agriculture advisory committee, and maybe Councillor Vickers would like to add on that. And the admin building over at Grey Sauble, built in the mid-70s, and it needs some work done on it. So we're once again going out to an RFP for renovations, and we're not too sure where the numbers, but we're going to have at least 2 or 3 directors sit in on this, on these RFP talks, and hopefully we can start to get things moving forward on some much needed work over there. Paul?
Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I can add through you, Your Worship, is, you know, the importance of the Agriculture Committee. I think some people maybe question it, but being that the agriculture industry owns a large majority of the farm land that's in our watershed, I think it's important to have you know, conversations back and forth. What's good for the conservation, it can be good for the agriculture industry, and you know, just the same as what's good for the agriculture industry can be good for the conservation industry. So I think it's a very positive outcome that we're having these two board members on the Ag Committee, and hope that we can get to find more common and more productive and better ground in the long run. So I know Scott Mackey and the chair was quite keen to get on the committee to help, you know, look at it through a different lens, sort of thing. So I think Harley, you're on the building committee. You and who was the other person? Oh, Dwight are the two that were appointed. So that just about sums up the meeting. I think Harley was right. It's one of our shorter meetings that we had. So
Good. Thank you for that. Any other, Councillor Bell?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. On the BIA front, this council has just adopted the work that the BIA did on preparing their budget for our consideration. 2 or 3 things that are going to impact the downtown core. One is that we had a resignation of one of our persons, and it has been decided that vacancy will not be fulfilled because of the length of time right now until there's a new council. And so they're going to wait until that time to do another appointment. So that leaves us with 5 on the board. The other one is the summer activities at Market Square. My next comment is not because of any lack of hard work on behalf of some people who really took that summer Market Square to heart and really worked at trying to make it all come together. But this summer they're not going to move forward with that kind of activity. It was mentioned that they need anchor tenants, and they believe that they need to have 5. They need to have 5 anchor tenants and that would have food. And then generally when they have that, you would get another 5 that would be on the peripheral. So you'd have 10 tenants, and it has just not been working. It hasn't been coming together. And, but if you read through the budget, you were going to see that the BIA is really putting its finances into the Market Square. And I did find it of great interest, Madam Deputy Mayor, when you mentioned about the wintertime and the Market Square. One of the requests that came to the BIA came from the Chamber of Commerce to have one official designated representative from the BIA working with the Chamber. And these would be those like-minded projects. And we have appointed a member to do that. So that's in place. And when you read through the budget, I don't have the number in front of me, but I think they're 27,500, something like that for their overall, but they put $17,000 towards the Market Square in the future in the winter. And it has to do with the very subject that I think I talked about maybe 3 months ago. I said, kind of stay tuned to some of these maybe exciting ideas in the wintertime. And it's a huge endeavor. And they're tossing around words like Christmas on the Bay or Christmas at the market. And they want to have it a really exciting time to do something different and generate more activity downtown. And we've heard a lot recently about working collaboratively with one another. You have like-minded projects, more synergy from more people. And I see this, that I've always supported this idea. I think that they can really do something. They're looking at it being a 4-day event. That's right out of the gate. Don't just start with one. They're really planning on a 4-day event. And music and these shelters, Madam Deputy Mayor, you talked about what they could look like. And there's a lot of details in that. Who owns them, where they're stored, and so on, and how they're going to look consistent. But the idea of it, I think it would be really nice that they could pull this off and make that happen. And as I say, their finances show that they're more than just lip service to making this happen when you see the lion's share of their money going towards that. So I'm glad we approved their budget, and I'm glad, Madam Deputy Mayor, you're more than in the loop on that one. So I think it'll be good, and they do work very hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. I think that covers it for local boards and committees. And so I'll have a mover and a seconder, please, to move out of committee of the whole, Councillor Vickers and Deputy Mayor at 3:26. All in favor, moving out of committee of the whole? That is carried. Are there any notices of motion to come forward before us? Councillor Bell.
Well, thanks again, Madam Mayor. And this is not something that I came up with on my own, but I certainly was inspired when I heard it. And I do want to bring it before this council and ask staff to come back with their comments on it. Maybe many people heard on the radio, the Mayor Janice Jackson from South Bruce Peninsula. Their council moved on removing minimum requirements for square footage for building homes. And I think that that would be something that I'd like to see a report from our staff bring forward because it will do, you can just work out the simple math. If you get reports from builders at $300, $400 a square foot, and if we've got requirements that are $1,500 or more, if we can reduce that, you can do the simple arithmetic and come up with, maybe we can get some folks into a dwelling at a lot less. And we've had comments about working collaboratively with everything, and that's going to affect our official plan. What do we feel about that? But I would like to see a report come back, and I welcome staff to look at South Bruce Peninsula, what Mayor Janice Jackson announced that they were doing. So that's what I'd like to see.
Okay, we'll expect that motion coming forward at the next council meeting. All right, we do have one for the decision. It is one proposed by Councillor Bartley. This no one built. Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, Your Worship. I just wanted to jump in and back to my council inquiry with the notice of motion that was discussed for staff to complete a report looking at the advantages or disadvantages of the suggested delegating of planning authorities from the county to the lower tiers.
My apologies, I didn't look that way, that direction. We'll look forward to your motion coming forward as well. All right, now we'll move on to Councillor Bartley's motion bringing forward. I'm assuming that you will move it. Councillor Bartley, could I have a seconder? And Councillor Bell, thank you. I will turn it over to you, Councillor Bartley, if you wish to speak to it.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to staff for putting this together with me and for me. I know that we're not all in agreements what I'm about to ask. I'm not going to read it. It's there in black and white. And I don't want council to demand staff to do this. I'd like to talk about it and see if we can't try it. You know, I'm not a road supervisor or know much about plowing the roads. I've been down that road, Sideroad 24 several times. Half a kilometer from the spot that the Snowmobile Club would like to try this endeavor, you couldn't do it. The ditches are too big, run too much water. In the next concession east, you could not do it. I realize that. And the next concession east of that, it's a major thoroughfare for water running on the sides of the road. But in the short section that they've asked on Side Road 24, I think it can be done. And I just want to ask staff, could we try it? It's not leaving more snow on the side of the road. That's basically, it kind of says that in the terminology of this. It's plowing it level versus digging down into the ditch and ditching it. I do understand the way water runs, but in this spot, I think I would like to try to appease the snowmobile club, but that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm going to ask Jeff to come and talk about that. But just to clarify, the way this motion's worded and the way I interpreted the request from the Snowmobile Club was that that section was an example. They wanted this to happen anywhere where the road linked snowmobile trails, which is significantly different.
Jeff, did you want to come forward and respond to that question? We're not connected here.
I'll speak up.
Oh,
Just
speak down.
just not talking loud enough.
Gary was sleeping.
No, through your worship and the council. First, I would like to thank the Snowmobile clubs for bringing this forward, and Councilor Bartley for driving it home. I do think it is a great resource to tap into, and with our changing tax base, like landowners, it's not like back in the day. Like back in the day, Snowmobile clubs essentially had free reign to go anywhere and everywhere. Now we're seeing, no trespassing private properties. The example that was given to council, actually the snowmobile trail was just in that field. New owners came up, not sure what happened. Snowmobile trail is not allowed. I think we can, understand that this is going to happen more often. So this is a great avenue for us as a municipality to help these groups tap into these resources for our small businesses within the community. I strongly recommend not going with this in the location that it's being requested. Within the road allowance, yes, we can definitely do something there. We have 20 meters of right of way. Essentially, we use 9 meters of it for our service area. I kind of will fight tooth and nail to keep everything out of that 9 meter service area because that's where we conduct our business. A groomer is wider than 2 meters. You put 2 meters on either side of that right of way, that's 4 meters of a 9 meter surface that we're utilizing for a service area. That's with no snow. Our snow storage grows. So when that starts growing out, that 2 meters starts growing out as well. We have to give, right now, most of our rural areas have a 3.25 meter road width or lane width, sorry. So that's, 6.5 meters to 7 meters, depending on where the right of way is. Once we start closing in on that, we can effectively provide those lanes of traffic. And then they also start, like your 4 inches at height will start impeding on the regulation 239 on the minimum maintenance standards, where we have to keep that travel portion at a lesser of 4 centimeters, depending on what road class we're talking about. The other issue that I have with it is, how water works, Councilor Bartley. Once we start building that transition up, even if it is at a level surface, so our crown goes down, level surface is out. I understand what you're asking, but sheet flow, will just start pooling there. It isn't allowed to get into our drainage system. Not that there's much of a ditch in the picture that was presented to council, but it has the means to dissipate water through it. We start leveling those ditch areas out. The water just sits there and it pools, backs up onto our right of way, doesn't give our road-based drainage, starts giving potholes, starts having ice water pooling hazard for motoring traffic. But what I think we can do is in areas, because as Matt said, that area was just a reference. The trail goes all through, going down to Thornberry. So I think we need to be prepared on, well, you said it here, what can you do here? Where we're also going to run into a little bit of issues in the urban Meaford, because we've had this, Councillor Kenter, I spoke to you about it. They've also brought a request for us not doing the urban areas too, so they can get into the gas station. So it is quite a big picture, and I think if we allow this to happen, we're opening our doors and we're not ready for it yet, especially in our service areas. The comment that Wayne put in his presentation where, it shouldn't really matter. Our weathers are more up and down. They are. We're getting more free thaws events throughout our winter. It's not a stable winter anymore. So we're digging our ditches out more frequently. So for us to, put the wing down to, give that crossfall into our ditch areas to allow sheet flow and surface melt to get into our drainage system, it's easier if we do that every day, every time we're out snow plowing, than to build a base and then having to get a grader with a bull board to either dig it out because it comes so hard packed that the wing, just dropping the wing, doesn't dig it out. So it really, I agree with helping them out, just not an application, is what I'm trying to say. I think we have the area within our right of ways to come up with, a survey to landowners. Like the property that was posted, the hydro poles are actually well within the field. So Sideroad 24 is to the farthest north point. So there's still quite a bit of road allowance that actually is road allowance to the south.
Councillor Bell. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Freeze. I know that you're well aware of snowmobilers and the activities like that. I wanted to second the motion from Councillor Bartley. I was a little surprised when the president didn't make other further comment as to the rationale as to really why they wanted a little bit of snow left. And that's because of the design of the modern sled with its radiator where it's located right above the track. So it's in the tunnel, and if they pick up gravel, they're just blowing out radiators. And so to leave a little snow for them when they travel, that would eliminate that. And that's a little bit of what happens when you get into that sport. And I would just, I do look forward to the report though, as I know that you're going to give it some really good consideration. I was also thinking that when our operators are out in those areas and they know where the snowmobiles come out, or they have to get down on the side of a road to get to the next area. And you have mentioned something which is happening right today. There's no trail that's open today. The weather has changed. They're not open. And again, in your report, I hope you include, what happens with that weather dynamics. The trails aren't even open. So why would you, as a crew, think about leaving that if they've already closed it? So I look forward to the report. And I did want to support my fellow councillor on this. And you're right. Things are not the same as when they were back in the day. When I used to ride in the manner which I used to ride. So I wanted to support that, and I do look forward to your report. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Madam Mayor, if I could just
Please.
jump in there. I just want to make it really clear that this motion does ask for a report, but it asks for a report after the season and tells us to do this now. And that's why I think staff aren't keen on this. We're very happy to write a report about what the impacts will be, but doing it now without having provided council with all of the information that we need to provide you makes us very uncomfortable.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. at no time would I have my fellow councilors or myself say, do it now. I want to bring it to the table to talk about it. Jeff is a better professional on roads than I am. If he says it's not a good idea, then I'm going to have to stick with that. I have to go with the professionals. I disagree. I thought where they're asking for it on side road 24, they have to come out to get around that bridge on the south side would be the best spot you could try this. And that's the only reason they come out. It's going to be shorter. I talked to the landowner today. He's going to ask them to use an exit more to the east because of the knoll that's there. And I just want to discuss it. I do not want to force somebody to do it now. And it wasn't the way it was explained to me, it wasn't leaving another 4 inches on top of the shoulder. It was making the shoulder level with the road, not on a 30-degree angle. That's the way it was explained to me. And no, I'm not asking to do it now. I would like to try to help the club out. And over on the third line where they want it, I haven't seen all the spots. I'm sure it's not possible everywhere. Like I said, half a mile east of where I've asked to have it looked at, you can't do it. The terrain just wouldn't allow it. The ditches are a water thoroughfare. So I just wanted to bring it up and talk about it. And maybe we could come up with some way of helping the club out down the road. I would not force staff into doing something that's going to be a deterrent. And that's why I put in there that if there was an issue, it would immediately come back to council and would discuss it. So I'm looking forward to a report, but no, I would not force anybody to do it without really having a look at it. Thank you.
So could we have a friendly amendment then to take out the first therefore paragraph? Mr. Clerk, would that help with that dilemma? And just have be resolved that staff be directed to bring forward a report prior to the next season?
Yes, we could absolutely do that. It really depends on what council wants to do. With all due respect to Councillor Bartley, this motion right now says do it now. It's a clear direction. If you just want to report, then yes, taking that one out. I will say, to be fair to the deputants, they did come to council asking for it now because their season is short, and so they didn't want to wait for slowness of municipal movements and so on. So that's why it's written the way it's written. But yeah, we could certainly, if we were to in effect just be asking for a report, we'd basically take out the first paragraph, but I'd twist some wording to make it into a formal resolution with all the right words in the right places.
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Bell, that's
Like to do that.
your friendly amendment. You're going to create a friendly amendment to remove that the last paragraph.
I think, Madam Mayor, it's not a friendly amendment, it's an amendment. This fundamentally changes the nature of the motion. So we would
It's
need to
not
move in a
friendly.
second.
Well, I'm sure it is friendly, but we'll classify
Oh, we
it.
being friendly, Madam Mayor?
Look who it's coming from.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And a seconder for that, Deputy Mayor. Okay. Councillor Kettner?
Are we having any debate on the amendment?
Yes, we are.
I don't understand why that paragraph can't be amended, the therefore clause be amended just to say where feasible, we will do it.
Okay.
Otherwise, if we're being told that, this is something that is categorically impossible for safe highways for vehicular traffic other than snowmobiles, then how is it that the snowmobiling clubs don't have this problem in other jurisdictions?
Okay. Any further discussion on this? We are discussing the amendment to the motion. Matt, do you have the wordsmithing that you thought might be appropriate?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
So basically, we would replace both clauses with, therefore be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford hereby directs staff to bring forward a report prior to the 2022-23 winter season, discussing the impacts of amending snow removal options to leave a 4-inch level layer of snow on the shoulders of the sections of municipal roads that link snowmobile trails.
Okay. Is that clear for everyone? You're happy with that, Councillor Bartley? All right. Deputy Mayor?
Thanks, Your Worship. And I would just ask Mr. Smith if he could send that to us, just so we have that wording.
It will be in the draft minutes, which we publish within the next couple of days.
Okay, and this motion, then since we're well, we're out of committee of the whole now. This is a decision that we'll be taking, so we need to be very sure of the wording. Perhaps, Matt, would you read it again for us?
So therefore be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford hereby directs staff to bring forward a report prior to the 2022/23 winter season, discussing the impacts of amending snow removal operations to leave a 4-inch level layer of snow on the shoulders of the sections of municipal roads that link snowmobile trails.
Everyone clear on that? All right, I'll call a question then on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment as presented? And that is carried. All right, are we ready to discuss or to call a question on the amended motion? All in favor of the motion as amended? And that is carried. 6-1. Okay, thank you very much for that, bringing that forward. We'll move on now to adoption of the minutes. First one is the planning public meeting, February the 7th, 2022. Move in a seconder, please, Councillor Vickers, and a seconder, please, Councillor Greenfield. Any comments, questions on that? Councillor Vickers.
For the people in attendance, can you check the one name? There's Joe Tackaberry and then there's Don, but it's not Tackaberry, the same name. I don't know whether they're husband and wife or whether it was two different people. And it might just be a bit of a spelling. I don't know whether it makes a difference when when their names are to get further information.
We'll double check the names, and if there needs to be an amendment, we'll just make that edit as a sort of a mistake fix.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, thank you for that. Eagle eyes. Anything further? All in favor of accepting those amended motions, and that is carried. And the council meeting of February 14th, 2022. Move in a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Bell. All right. Any comments, questions on that, those minutes? Being none, all in favor of those minutes as presented, then that is carried. And the closed meeting of February 14th, move in a seconder, please. Councillor Greenfield, Councillor Bartley. If there are any discussions to be had on that, we'll have to go into committee, into closed. Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor, and that is carried. Thank you. All right, is there anything on the communications file that anyone wishes to pull forward for discussion? Councillor Vickers.
So B, talking about the PILT payment. Is this something that that my other fellow councillors would be willing to support? That it might be, I think, something that's very advantageous for Meaford when it talks about the education portion of the tax.
Over to you. Who wishes to? Rob?
As council will recall, we brought a report back, and actually we've already stated our concerns and expressed them already. this is AMO catching up actually to
Oh, there.
our concerns expressed. So, yeah.
Yeah, we've already done that.
So yes, we have supported it.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else to come out of the communications file? Not seeing anything. All right, we'll note that they have been received. And the last is a confirming bylaw. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-09 is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the municipality of Meaford at its regular and special meetings held in the month of February 2022, and that it be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Kentner, Councillor Bell. All in favor of this motion, and that is carried. And that completes the agenda before us today. And with that, I will thank everyone for your participation, staff for your comments, and to our listening public for attending, and declare this meeting adjourned. And the sun's still shining, so if